What's going on, everybody? Dr. Ryan Hewitt here with the Weaponized Body podcast. And today we're going to be talking about your guide to understanding your physiology when it comes to staying strong, sharp, unbreakable, and recovered. We're going to be talking about a hormone that a lot of people have never heard of before, but is immensely critical when it comes to your performance, health, recovery. So this one flies under the radar. And when it comes to anti-aging, which seems to be all the rage lately, it is literally one of the absolute most critical biomarkers to measure and hormones in the body. And that is something called IGF-1. Insulin-like growth factor. So it's involved with basically building muscle, burning fat, repairing cartilage, and all kinds of important things when it comes to anti-aging, like skin, hair, and nails, etc. So, and it is made primarily in the liver. And it is the downstream hormone that is stimulated by a hormone you've heard of called human growth hormone. Okay. Think of human growth hormone as like the signal from your brain, like the commander yelling to their infantry to grow, repair, and rebuild. And IGF-1 are like the soldiers that go out and do that stuff in your body. So when growth hormone pulses right out of your pituitary gland, usually at night during sleep and when you are fasting, it tells the liver to produce IGF-1. And that's what travels through your bloodstream and does the following: builds new muscle tissue, repairs your joints, your tendons, your ligaments. It supports healthy bone density. It boosts cognitive function, so brain health. It enhances fat metabolism, and it even improves things like insulin sensitivity and cardio health. So it is literally a do-it-all hormone. So in other words, like IGF-1 is a growth and repair hormone. So when you hear human growth hormone, you need to think IGF-1. So how it is produced and converted in the body. So I mentioned this already, that your pituitary gland, which is like a tiny organ at the base of your brain, releases a pulse of growth hormone mostly at night during times of fasting, but also intense exercise will create stimulation of growth hormone secretion. So then what happens is it travels to your liver and binds to receptors that stimulate the release of this hormone called IGF-1. Now, here's the catch. The conversion of growth hormone to IGF-1 depends on quite a few factors. So a lot of people are unknowingly sabotaging these things, and I see it all the time on labs. To make the growth hormone to IGF-1 conversion, you need, number one, deep, uninterrupted sleep. So that's where growth hormone spikes, and you're able to get a bunch of it to the liver. One of the most underrated health problems in this country or in Western society is sleep dysregulation. So if you want optimal growth hormone secretion and IGF-1 action in the body, you need to get deep, uninterrupted sleep. We'll come back to that. Number two is adequate protein intake. You want to make sure you're getting a plethora of essential amino acids in your body, especially things like arginine, glycine, and glutamine. And this growth hormone to IGF-1 conversion is predicated upon healthy liver function. So liver is clearly where growth hormone gets converted to IGF-1, so you need to have healthy liver processes, which are supported by all kinds of different behavioral things in the body. So having proper insulin sensitivity. So when you have insulin resistance or chronic inflammation, what happens is this growth hormone signal actually gets blunted, and it affects the downstream conversion of IGF-1. And lastly, there's micronutrients and minerals that assist this process, such as zinc, magnesium, vitamin D, and so on. So those are essential, what are called cofactors in growth hormone and recovery pathways. So if any of these things are off in any way, like your sleep, your nutrition, your liver health, your insulin sensitivity, your growth hormone might still pulse when you're sleeping or when you're getting sleep, but the conversion of that IGF-1 can stall out. So the IGF-1 is actually something you probably never seen anybody get their growth hormone actually measured, because most of it is pulsed at night. And it actually will pulse throughout the day, depending on what you're doing, growth hormone. So it's very difficult to capture exactly, like, do I have healthy growth hormone levels, so to speak. IGF-1 is a much better biomarker, much better hormone to measure, because growth hormone fluctuates wildly and IGF-1 stays more consistent. So basically, like, you could catch growth hormone through a peak or a trough and you wouldn't really know. That's why IGF-1 is more accurate. IGF-1 levels stay relatively stable, and it reflects more so the average of your growth hormone activity over time. So when you look at your IGF-1, you're essentially getting like, a 24-hour report card of what's been going on with your growth hormone. Now, IGF-1, we'll talk about levels in which you should look for. But if your IGF-1 levels are low, for example, typically what this tells me is the following: that number one, the strongest, the number one reason your growth hormone is not pulsing properly and you're not getting a lot of IGF-1 conversion is your sleep is messed up. Or number two is you're under recovered. So that could mean that you're not eating enough protein, enough essential amino acids to support this conversion and these processes, or there's too much stress going on in your life and you're not recovering properly, getting into like parasympathetic rest repair. You might have insulin resistance or inflammation issues, such as being obese or overweight. Now, if on the other hand, if your IGF-1 is sufficient or high, that means you're anabolic. So it means like you're recovering and repairing properly, you're well recovered, you're sleeping properly, and your tissues are regenerating well. So let's talk about what a good IGF-1 level looks like. For those of you who've never had it measured before, most of the time you're going to get it measured in nanograms per milliliter. So your like optimal IGF-1 levels really depends on things like your age, also your goals, right? Most reference ranges in labs you're going to see, for youth, it's going to be a lot different because your growth hormone levels are, definitely way higher when you're young and teenage and going through puberty and whatnot. As you get more towards your 30s, and especially 40s, you're going to see that typically in those range, like the ranges you're going to see is between like 80 to 350. Okay. Normal is not always optimal though. Okay. That's another range, just like your testosterone range, that is wildly variable. So you want to make sure that you're considering what's optimal versus normal. So for men under 40 years old, we're talking maybe over 20 years old, but under 40. So you're in your 20s or 30s, you definitely want to see well over 200. You want to see maybe 250 to 350 in that range. For men in their 40s and 50s, I like to see over 180. So 180 to 250. Women tend to run just a little bit lower, but again, the similar principles apply as far as what contributes to higher or lower IGF-1 levels. For women over 40, I want to see over 150, usually 150 to 200, if not more. So one of the indicators of being too low, though, is generally speaking, like if you're under the age of 60, you don't really want it below 150. Especially if you're seeing below 100, you got problems, right? And you're probably feeling it. This leads to feelings of like poor recovery, low energy, very difficult to gain muscle, and joint pain, joint aches, brain fog, stubborn body fat that's very difficult to lose, and so on and so forth. So just like testosterone, IGF-1 has like a sweet spot, just a nice range where your body's like firing on all cylinders. Your performance, your health, recovery is on point, and you're feeling like superstar. So let's talk about ways you can improve IGF-1 naturally. So let's talk strategy, right? If your IGF-1's low, so let's talk about the levers you can pull. that can help boost this growth hormone and this IGF-1 stimulus. Number one is prioritizing deep sleep. So you can dial back to a podcast I did maybe 15 or 20 episodes ago on sleep. You'll get a lot of data and information on how do you prioritize your sleep and get better sleep there. But just in a nutshell, like your biggest growth hormone pulses, they happen during like stage 3 and 4 deep sleep. So to get into like routine, regular deep sleep, number one, cut alcohol. Alcohol completely fucks up your deep sleep. Try to reduce your screen and your blue light time before bed. You want to prioritize those hours before midnight. So ideally, you're getting to bed before 10 p.m. usually. Keep your room cold and dark, and whatever you got to do to wind down before bed. Try not to eat, 1.5 to 2 hours before bed. Those are things you can do like all free. None of that costs money. And if you stay consistent with that, you're going to notice better sleep patterns. Number two is strength training and hard training, especially things like the hard lifts, the compound lifts, right? Squats, deadlifts, heavy pushes and pulls and sprints. So these actually stimulate growth hormone release far more than say like calf raises and bicep curls, right? So training full body, lift heavy, and doing the high intensity interval sprint work, you're going to get way better growth hormone stimulus from this. This is going to trigger the need for more recovery. Number three, and this one's going to sound a little bit controversial because I've given my thoughts on intermittent fasting before, particularly when it comes to weight loss, but it can naturally spike growth hormone, improve that receptor sensitivity. Let's talk about optimizing protein and micronutrients. So here goes the broken record dietary recommendation, right? Eat a protein-based whole food diet, right? That is rich in fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds. Looks like you're eating things that were alive at one point or came from the ground or a tree. So you want to get 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight is, a pretty good general recommendation. You're getting most of your protein from dense protein sources, chicken, fish, beef, bison, eggs, stuff like that. You can still get it from veggie sources. It's more difficult, whatever that is, nuts and soy and, powders and things like that, right? Difficult in times of the year where it's gray and shitty out, but, eating foods that have some of that, nice fatty nutrients like vitamin D, like deep sea fish, but also getting outside, even when it's overcast, you can still get some sunshine on your face and arms, and in your eyeballs. And getting sun in your eyeballs, by the way, in the morning, low light is going to help with get you into deep sleep later. Let's say number 5, maintaining insulin sensitivity. Okay, there's a lot that goes into this. But like IGF-1 thrives when your insulin is balanced. Like if you have insulin sensitivity problems, your IGF-1 is going to get crushed. It's one of the things that affects IGF-1 the most. So the easiest thing is like cut refined sugar. Like soda is one of the, I would say the biggest offenders there, just like that processed sugar. I'm not saying carbs. I'm just saying like processed refined sugar. And also like lack of movement. So you want to make sure you're moving your body. So after you eat is a great time to walk. They found research shows that postprandial walking actually improves your insulin sensitivity, helps your digestion. We've done some podcasts on, the effects of stress and cortisol in the body, but chronic stress actually just completely wrecks the growth hormone to IGF-1 pathway. Just think about it this way. You can't grow if your body is in that fight or flight. So whatever you can do to get yourself into that rest, repair, relaxation, reproduction, digestion mode, which is called parasympathetic activities of the body. So what are things that help get you there? Well, meditating, breath work, grounding practices, getting outside and going for a walk, whatever it does, whatever you need to do to get into that mode to get you in a peaceful state. So managing stress and cortisol, very, very critical. And then the last thing I'll say, other ways to boost IGF-1 that are not as natural would be things like peptides and medical interventions. These are some things we've helped folks with who've optimized lifestyle but are still running low in IGF-1. So I've done podcasts on growth hormone releasing hormone and growth hormone releasing peptides such as sermorelin, tesamorelin, also like CJC1295, ipamorelin. These are peptides that help with the stimulus of growth hormone, which in turn will convert into IGF-1 downstream in the liver. These are peptides that do have that can be prescribed by medical professionals. So, which is why they call these medical peptides. So these should be monitored with labs. I want to stress that. A lot of people are just throwing spaghetti on the wall and like getting these peptides from research only facilities. Like, listen, let's get your lab work. Let's see what your IGF-1 levels are. Are you optimizing the lifestyles or things you can do to boost it naturally? If you're doing the work and they're still low, there's peptides you can use intelligently with proper protocols. And that way you're not reckless with, doing things that you have no idea what you're doing in your body, which is why I'm a huge proponent of making sure you're monitoring with labs, making intelligent decisions with your health and what you're doing with your body. So like the truth is you should know your IGF-1 levels. I know it's like most people probably haven't even heard of this and it would never be on a typical like physical like lab work, for example, which is bananas. Like if you want to know about your biological age, you absolutely want to know your IGF-1 levels. Like nothing is actually probably more important for your recovery potential than this hormone. So if your IGF-1 is strong, it just means to me that your tissues are healing properly, your metabolism's active, your mind is sharp, and that hormone axis is responsive. So I know that, physiologically things are functioning well. So now if it's low, you can think of this like your body is in like maintenance mode or even breakdown mode. So it means like you're not in growth mode. And if you're someone who's looking to improve in their fitness, you want to make sure that you have healthy biological age. You want to make sure you're not breaking down rapidly. Okay. Then you want to make sure your IGF-1 levels are not low. You don't want to be decaying slowly over time. I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want to be decaying slowly over time. I know we're all aging, but there are ways to make sure you fight that biological clock. Okay. And this is one way to do it. And if you're someone who's like very serious about optimizing your performance, whether like you're just someone who wants to kill it at the gym, you want to look great aesthetically, or let's say, you want to run a very successful business and be a great leader, you want to be the best dad or husband, you need to know this number, okay? Because if you're not, if you're training hard and not recovering well, it means that you're going in a deficit, okay, faster than you realize. And like testosterone's a great number to monitor too, but like if your IGF-1 levels are tanked, then you're missing half the equation here. So I hope some of this was helpful. Hope you guys understand how important this hormone is. This is a hormone that we measure on all of our hormone panels for both males and females. So my challenge to you this week is get your labs done and get your IGF-1 levels on the panel. If it's not there, ask for it. Okay, start optimizing the basics, of course, like sleep, nutrition, resistance training, keeping ideal body weight, keeping your body fat down. If you need any help interpreting or improving your IGF-1 levels, well, that's exactly what I help people do with Weaponized Wellness. I'm seeing more and more folks who have had like Function Health labs. They're working with other providers, but not getting their labs interpreted for them, or they're on like cookie cutter protocols. Like these are a lot of the cases I specialize in. We're going to get a far better understanding of what's going on under the hood. I'm going to help give you lifestyle recommendations, supplementation. If you're a candidate for any peptides or hormone optimization, that's all really, really important, right? You can't improve what you don't measure. I can't emphasize that enough, right? Because you should be viewing your health as a weapon. It is one of the most important weapons you have in order to help attack the things in your life that you want results with, right? You cannot be a great husband, father, employee or business owner if you do not have robust health. Period. Right? So staying strong, staying sharp, it should be a huge priority for everybody. But the thing is, if you don't know where you're starting to fall apart under the hood, then you're not catching things before they become downstream problems. So get your lab work done, get your IGF-1 levels measured, reach out if you need help. Share this podcast up with anybody who's a biohacker, someone who's into anti-aging, someone who gives a shit about their health. I appreciate you guys reaching out, rating and reviewing the podcast. I'll keep coming out with content for you guys. Tune in every week, and appreciate you guys listening. So stay weaponized. See you guys next week.